The world changes. Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Rocky's Ace Hardware. For all your fall cleanup needs, plus you'll experience our legendary helpful service in every department. Rocky's, rock solid service since 1926.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
You know I'm a dreamer, but my heart's of gold. I had to run away high, so I wouldn't come home low. Just when things went right, it doesn't mean they were always wrong. Just take this song, and you'll never be left all alone. Take me to your heart, fill me in your bones. Just one more night, and I'm coming on this long and winding road. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home. Tonight, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home. You know that I've seen too many romantic dreams up in lights falling off the silver screen. My heart's like an open book for the whole world to read. Sometimes nothing keeps me together at the seams. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home. Tonight, I'm on my way. Just set me free. Home, sweet home. Home, sweet home. Home, sweet home. Home, sweet
Interesting. The background looks different today.
Nice virtual set there.
Yeah, the background looks a little bit different today. It almost looks kind of like a 22 News-ish type, a newsy feel.
Yeah, I put you on a nice set.
That's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool how you can do that with that virtual stuff.
Yeah.
So how are you, Peter?
I'm doing okay. Watch this. I can even get even cooler. I can zoom right into you there.
People don't want to see that. They see enough of me. I've been between that and the amount my name has been in the news and the paper lately.
Yeah, what are you stirring up over there?
Oh gosh, Peter, there's been so much controversy since I last saw you.
Last time I saw you was Carl's retirement lunch, which is about 2 weeks ago.
Yep. There's a lot going on in Southwick.
I see there's an uproar about some kind of hunting thing.
Oh, the hunting public informational meeting was held last night.
Want to pick up that microphone a little bit?
Is this better?
Much better.
All right.
Oh, God, yes.
Okay. So the hunting informational, that was a public meeting, the informational. We basically wanted to get public's input. So basically, I don't know what it was, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, they all kind of meld together now.
Are you trying to establish rules for hunting within the town limits?
What happened is there was a piece of property that was managed by an individual, and it was a trust property. I'm not exactly sure the specifics, other than that it was a trust that was managed. The person that managed this woman, there were issues with hunters. I don't know if this property is properly posted. What a lot of people don't realize in Massachusetts is if your land isn't posted, hunters can actually go on it. It's just the way the law is written. It's good and it's bad. But that was a lot of the talk last night. So what ended up happening is a hunter put up a tree stand. Within 30 days of the end of the hunting season, tree stands have to come down. The way it was explained to me and what we were given is that this woman gave the person notice. They didn't have the tree stand down. She didn't really want them out there. I don't know if there was any official interaction between the two of them. But you're from your previous as a dispatcher and me in law enforcement. If someone's been told they're not supposed to be there, they're not supposed to be there.
That's the equivalence of trespassing.
Yes, yep. You can do it once someone has knowingly been told by the person in control of the property, that is actually enough. You don't actually. A lot of people think you actually have to have that piece of paper.
I mean, you should give them some notice, and you should have it
absolutely
documented somewhere.
Yeah. So and it's Southwick. So we're a recreational community. We had
and you have a lot of land.
Yeah,
not like undeveloped land.
So basically, a hunting bylaw, for lack of a better term, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be a little blunt here. This turned into a pissing match between two people. Then what happened is one took out a small claims claim against one person for destroying the sand. The other one took out a small claims claim. They both ended up filing court cases.
Boy.
Long story short, both of them eventually pulled the court cases away.
Wait a minute. Let me go find the People's Court theme. Come on.
Was it? I forget the Rusty was the bailiff. What was the guy?
Judge Wapner.
Who was the announcer guy? I can see his face clear as day.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name either. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, so that was the public informational meeting. What ended up happening is there was a request to consider enacting a hunting bylaw, and as a lot of people said, probably the word hunting bylaw was probably the wrong way to put it.
Recreational use bylaw.
It should have been more of a private land use bylaw, however you wanted to put it.
I would say it is a recrational use because then you cover you could cover bird watchers and
that was one of the questions last night is if hunters are trespassed, are hikers trespassed?
Right.
And some trespassing signs clearly state just no trespassing. Others clearly state no hunting, fishing, recreation, motorized vehicle use, stuff like that.
Right.
So what ended up happening is we got a lot of people that showed up. It was great. I really wish more people would show up with some of these I wouldn't say controversial subjects, but other subjects.
More mundane topics.
Believe me, they haven't been mundane in the last month or so, Peter.
Like the budget.
Well, the budget is the budget,
But nobody shows up for the budget ever. Like a lot of people showed up for the school committee budget in Westfield. And I'm great, but that's only because it was being cut. But when it's actually the nitty-gritty every year in the city budget, nobody ever shows up, and then they complain about it.
Yeah, that's I'm finding.
Come understand the process.
You know, and coming from Westfield, where the process was a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, I never was involved in smaller town government because I was a young guy. You know, I was working all the time. I didn't have time. This has all been a great learning experience. No matter what happens next year, you know, this has been awesome. You know, it's been great to represent the people of Southwick, you know, whether they agree with me or not on certain things.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's been great. So a lot of people just don't understand. Like when I first moved to town, you know, I didn't know about town meeting. When I pulled my papers, I wasn't even aware that I pulled my papers. They're like, okay, you're all set to go. And I'm like, oh, good. So November, right? And they're like, oh no, your election is in May.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
What?
I'm like, okay, yeah. So it's completely
Yeah,
different.
because your town government has to be in place at the town meeting.
Yes, correct.
That's when
the
your
decision is made.
That's when your calendar
Yep.
starts.
And then you know, I was sworn in that night, and you know that's what's going to happen most likely, unless Doug has a bazillion write-ins that are not Doug Moglen. You know, we'll probably see Doug again next year. And the only two,
Which I think you guys have worked pretty well as a trio.
I think, you know,
Because you're all bringing way different viewpoints to the table.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
No, you know, it's you know, some people say, oh, Jason, you're awful quiet. Well, you know me, Pete. When I have something to say, I say it, and sometimes I might not say it in the most appropriate way. You know, one of the things that's been controversial is what happened with the school.
Kind of like your predecessor.
You said it, not me.
Well, he admits it.
No, I know he does.
He
You know,
fully admits
that's one of the
it.
things I appreciate about Joe. Me and him are the same way. And he's pulled me aside a couple times and said, "Hey, young man, you know," and I get it. You know, we all learn from our mistakes, and you know. So one of the controversial things that came up. Let me finish the hunting thing.
Yes,
first.
let's tie that.
So
one
the
together.
hunting thing basically got tied up and wrapped up last night. The general census is when this proposed bylaw came out, one of the things that was a complete non-starter for me was at the very beginning it would have banned hunting on all public lands in Southwick. That was a no-go
And there's
for
a
me.
lot of it.
There's a
There's
no-go.
a lot of public land in Southwick.
You know, I had my own personal office hours. I really wish more people would show up. You know, I try to do them at least every couple of months, you know, sometimes a little bit more often. But, you know, it's been crazy season. Budget season is crazy season.
Yep.
You know, between that and work and, you know, interviews for promotions, which I didn't get promoted again. So be it. But there's one more
yeah,
chance coming up.
you have your work life, you have your elected life, and then you have your family life,
Yeah.
and they all have to balance somehow.
And I tell you what,
It's not easy.
No, well, people see you at the meetings and in the events. And then they don't come for the other things. They don't see the other, like you said, the budget meetings. I mean, that's a lot of time. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty much every budget meeting for this term and last term, I'm coming straight from work. I'll you know, it was I didn't make the second meeting this year, but the first meeting, it was funny. I can't remember I think it was Mr. Conley was sitting next to me. He goes, yeah, I saw you doing this a couple of times, and it's like, you know, it's a lot to take in, especially if you've been up all night. But
So on the recreational use, is that at town? Is that going to be scheduled for an annual town meeting?
actually,
Or is there something
pretty much
proposed for that? Or
Because
is it
it was
just
a
gonna be-
public meeting last night, and we didn't put on the agenda that a decision could have been made.
Mm-hmm.
Doug had proposed it, and then we were informed, Lisa informed us, you know, you didn't notify people that a decision could be made tonight. It was just a public meeting, not an official board, just a meeting. It wasn't
an
actual-
informational
yes,
meeting, right.
correct.
And it wasn't on the agenda that there could be a decision.
Correct. So our next meeting this coming Monday, it's going to be on there. And pretty much, I from the get-go, the more I read into it, the more I looked at the state laws. There's already state laws in place, and as I said last night, these have been in place for decades and you know, in some cases even centuries, or a century or so, and they've worked fine. It's a matter of etiquette, really.
Now, I think now the onus falls upon the landowner.
Some of the people were
just
not
post.
pleased. Yeah, well, that's what I said, and I get it. Some of the folks are like, well, why is it upon me? Well, that's what the law says.
Right.
The law states that you need to post it in a conspicuous manner. And like a couple of people asked, well, if I have a gate and I've got it on there, and I've got land and I've got 80 acres and it goes all, I said, no, that's not, one posted sign is not sufficient. You have to, in a regular fashion, the state doesn't say how many feet, we have a neighbor behind us, we've got 70 acres of open space that's part of the homeowners association. And out back there, he's made a point to go every, I'd say 50 feet, and that's his prerogative.
I would say every quarter of a mile.
I think it's really about every 100. Basically every 100 feet would kind of covers you. That, for the most part, unless you're coming from a very tight area, 100 feet apart, you can kind of see the signs as long as they're posted in a good spot. So long story short, Doug had started to ask for a motion. I was going to make the motion. Diane brought forth, she said that, there was a lot of people that wanted to come that didn't come because they were afraid that they'd be singled out or they'd be targeted. That's unfortunate that they feel that way. I know that's been, the claims in the past and stuff like that. Well, that's not going to happen.
Well, and that's the way national politics is right now. So I get it, but, I get it, but I get it.
That stood up at the end and said, hey, even though I'm a hunter, if those people didn't want it, we really want them here. For the most part, people do. I understand, there's still a little bit of two different
mindsets.
Mindsets, parties, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I would say mindsets because one side kind of, or one mindset is the landowner. And one mindset is the recreational user. It doesn't matter what the recreational use is. It's kind of like the landowner and not the landowner.
Yeah.
Really.
So, unfortunately, there was a few people that didn't come out. And I understand, like I said, this was a tough one. You understand both sides. Most of your reasonable people, and everybody there last night was reasonable. We didn't have, as Doug said, he goes, this was one of the most courteous meetings I've dealt with when it's been it's any sort of controversial topic. Because I wouldn't say controversial, but high interest with different points of view. So basically, I'm going to tell you right now, when the motion request next week for the motion to come out to strike this and not put it on town, I'm against it. So there's rules in place. I said that last night. I said from the beginning, the more I read it, the more I was inclined not to support this. And it's not that I don't support the landowners, and I hope people understand that, but the laws are in place. If you've got 100 acres and it means that much to you, that
right.
You don't want somebody way out there.
Well, the other thing, it's been working. Like if it wasn't working, and that's where I understand where a local community, okay, it's not working. It may work for other places, but it's not working for us, so we need to tweak it.
Yep.
And so there's already, I'm kind of libertarian in that way. There's so many regulations. I'd love to go through.
A lot of people
I'd love to be a lawyer and go through the law books and go, why are we holding on to a law from 1635?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Some crazy ones like got to have at least 3 bells on your sleigh if it's
right. That's what I'm saying. There's so much unneeded law or superseded law. All right, get rid of the old stuff, and it just keeps adding on. It's like the trash heap.
Yeah, well, it's like some of these contracts over the years that we've dealt with, whether it be personnel, labor, whatever. There's these MOUs that stack up, and it's like, okay, let's just let's cut out the
right.
unnecessary crap, and let's make this more condensed and much more common sense and readable.
Yep, absolutely.
So long story short, the general public that was there was not for it. Some of the folks brought it up. Like there was a gentleman that came to my office hours the night before who had informed me that, so many years ago, he ceded 17 acres of land to the town with the contingents and
Preservation land.
Yes, with the contingency that hunting and at least passive recreation. I'm not sure about the ATV use because he had used it for that back in the past. But when he gave it to the land, to the town, that was one of the agreements that he wrote into it, that, I'm going to give the town this land, but it needs to remain open for this type of recreation. So
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, here's the thing. It was an issue that popped up, became a focus point.
Yep.
And then community was asked to be involved. They were involved. And now it's like, well, okay, it's not that big of an issue as we thought. It can be handled under existing statutes. And here's how you go about implementing it. And so, so that's the education piece on the back end. And it's like, that's how government's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Seriously. That's how government's supposed to work. Either you've identified a problem. You either say, okay, are there laws to address the problem that we don't know about? Or do we need to fix the problem?
Yep, exactly. So, I'm glad that people came out. I wish, so that's that topic. We'll go right there. So I'm going to go right into the next stuff, as I said. So we picked a new police chief. That was somewhat controversial as well. I'm sure that there were articles in the paper regarding past mistakes that the current chief select had been involved in. It's not an easy process, and I'm going to be honest. And I said from the beginning, and I think you probably have heard this, and I said it, I wanted an assessment center. The issue that I had with the two candidates is, one, you had a guy who was extremely qualified on paper and knowledgeable on the administrative, who might not have been the best personable candidate, and has had his share. He's been in town his entire life, and I'm going to say, again, I'm going to be blunt, he's pissed off a bunch of people throughout his career, and that's going to happen. As a police officer, you're never going to please everybody. I don't care who you are. So that happened. And then the other candidate, great guy, what a lot of people probably don't know is he was my, people like, well, you're probably friends with this guy, and I'm not friends really with the guy that I picked. I've known him for many, many, many years. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of his from the way, but when push came to shove, I've got to do the best thing for the town that's going to put the town in a position, contrary to what people think, to not put the town in a position of liability. And so the selection was made with all these, the totality of the circumstances. I really wish that Diane and Doug had let me bring in an assessment center, because then we could have took these two candidates and put them in a situation other than just the interviews. And that was another telling point with the interview. I've always gone into everything that I've done since I've been on the board and said, I'm going to give everybody a fair shot. And when I walk into that room, a decision isn't made, but I'm going to listen. I may be leaning one way or the other, but if you can convince me with your interview, because I went in that night and I said it at the end of the meeting when Doug was looking for a motion. I said, I went in that meeting that night and I wasn't going to pick either one. I really wasn't. But Chief Select Banish, his interview was spot on. He understands the position and whatever. And Sergeant Krucka, great guy. I think he's going to be maybe a chief down the road. Yep. But the interviews kind of separated the two, and that's why like a lot of people, there was a lot of grumbling and rumbling on the social.
Well, there always is going to be.
And so that's why part of the reason I pulled my office hours, I said, please, if you want to know why I did these, the controversial. So it's kind of great that I have this forum this week to do this, or this month. And I'll come out and I'll explain everything to you. You don't have to agree with me, but I'll explain why to you. There was no ulterior motives. I'm not necessarily. We're work acquaintances, professional acquaintances, but I did not go in there with my personal opinion, really making that decision. Others, Sergeant Krucka is definitely the more personable of the two. I'm going to say that right out loud, and whether anybody likes to hear that or not, including Chief Select Banish, he pretty much knows that. Me and him have had a discussion that, you need to be a little bit more, you're now the face of the department. You have to be much more approachable. And he had started to change, during the previous part of his career, he wasn't. He wasn't the most personable guy. And he had started to change, because I think this has been his goal all along, and great for him, and if that's what he wants. And he's earned, what I wanted to say to a lot of people is, and I'm going to be honest, I've told several people this, I'm not signing his contract. I gave him the opportunity. The other folks can sign his contract. I will not sign it. What you earned from me is your opportunity. So now you need to prove to yourself, prove to me,
Do you have to sign it by law?
No, I do not.
It just needs a majority of the
It just needs the majority of the selectmen. So
Okay.
it
It was a question I was like, okay.
I've already told several people,
All right.
So as long as you got the majority on there, if the other two don't sign, then that's on them. Then we have to really consider what we want to do, what the contract's going to be. But this is kind of my line in the sand, my way of saying I gave everybody the opportunity to, in my opinion, do it the right way and bring in, because it's a small town. There's different opinions, again, based on personal interaction, years of interaction. And, I heard both sides of the coin. But when push came to shove, one of the things Diane and Doug said, well, Diane had many years in the corporate world of management. Doug, as we know, is one of the executive vice presidents or vice presidents of some division of Wally.
Yep.
So he's got a lot of experience with hiring. And then Diane and Doug wanted to rely on my law enforcement expertise. Well, I'm no expert. I said that from the beginning. I said, I may have some expertise and some professional ability within the law enforcement world.
You've seen leaders of all types.
Well, that's the thing.
And it's a different type of leadership than in a corporate world.
And
so yes, you are an expert in that sense.
I don't like to say that, but thank you, Pete. If people think I'm an expert in that sense,
well, because you've lived it.
I have.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
well,
just like I've lived in government now 24 years. I think I'm just crested 24 years.
You got on right before me.
It's 2000.
Well, I got on as a reserve in 99, so we both have about 26, 27 years in that range, right?
Yeah, I think I'm 24, 25, something like that. So, but yeah, so I've been in government for a long time, and I've been in the private sector. I've been in the public sector, and it's a different animal. Most people don't understand how the public sector works unless you actually work in the public sector.
And that's one of the things, like during contract negotiations, Diane and Doug leaned on me a little bit for that. And knowing what I know, where people are coming from, especially in the economy and the environment, I said, this is where we need to be with certain things, but not to go off topic.
Mm-hmm.
But so I want people to know, if you really want to know, if you're upset with the decision I've made, I understand that. But come to me and I'll explain it to you. This is the best I can do here. I don't want to get into personal aspects of it. Mm-hmm. But I kept my personal opinion out of it and did what I think is the best for the town. And here's the thing. Whatever contract, it's actually going to be Doug. And actually Bobby is our current Chief Landis is also our acting CAO. So this might be sorted out prior to our new CAO, which is the next topic I'll come up with, comes on board. So we'll see what they come up with. It might be a 1 year, it might be a 2 year, it might be a 3 year.
So I have a question for you.
Go for it.
If the new chief comes on and does a great job, as a sign of respect, would you sign his next contract if you're still in office?
If I'm still in office, absolutely.
Okay.
This is, like I said, myself and Chief Select Banish have had.
And I think that should be out there. You know what I'm saying?
It's not. This is. You need to prove yourself for me because of the. I'm not going to lie, because of the controversies that were out there and the questions that were out there. Again, this is why I wanted a professional assessment center to come in, made up of former chiefs that could look at everything. These are guys that have actually done that job, and could say and do this for a regular basis. And could have given us an opinion that could have said this way. We could have, relied on more than just ourselves and said, hey, these professional experts said this. And actually, my intent when we move forward next meeting, I really think, especially in this environment, as you know, Pete, the reserve police officers are pretty much gone. And
I think that, by the way, I think that's an absolute joke.
Well,
that's happened
I
to
hope at some point.
every city and town in Massachusetts has been hamstrung.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because of that.
Well, we've talked about
except for the city of Boston, which has always been full time.
Yeah. So
which I think is absolutely ludicrous.
It is. It doesn't give us a way to really kind of feel people out anymore. So my next proposal, and I've said this before, I think moving forward, there should be, whether it's because these assessment centers can also design tests. And really, if you don't have, you have people to take that impression that there's personal pull either way. You've heard it. We've all heard it. To take the politics out of it, for lack of a better, let's put something in front of people like we do with promotions right now, like here in Westfield. We're not civil service, but towns like Amherst, towns in Connecticut, they do group tests for entry level, and then for promotional they do their own exams, and it can be based on not just the laws and what you need to know at a state or law level, but also your own personal policies. It gives you, to me, that's a better judgment of, it gives you a better look at people rather than just say, hey, I like this guy because, or, So my next proposal is going to be, we're going to now with Lieutenant Banish now becoming Chief Select Banish, we're going to need to fill a lieutenant's position. If my brother-in-law, which a lot of people may or may not know, my brother-in-law is a sergeant in town. If he puts his name in for it, I'm out of it. So now you're going to have Doug and Diane are going to have to make this decision. And I really can't even talk. I can't be involved. It's, ethically, I've reached out to the ethics board. Could I be involved?
It's a conflict of interest.
Well, actually, believe it or not, per the state laws, it's not. My brother-in-law actually doesn't count under the way the ethics looked into it. And I reached out to state ethics, and this has been confirmed. That being said, the best thing for me to do is to step away from this for the lieutenant's position. I don't know if my brother-in-law is going to put in for it or not. But see, this is another aspect where if we had a test, everybody takes the test as long as they pass.
You'd have a metric?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have some sort of metric. You're going to have some sort of rubric, something that you can look at and say, this is where we're at. So this is what this guy has over this guy. And then now let's talk about what we know about this individual personally, what we've been told, and so on and so forth. So I really think moving forward, it's got to be the way, unless the reserve officers come back, I think towns like Southwick need to look at, even at the entry level, you can't just, the amount of money and investment that goes into an officer to put him through the academy, and then he doesn't cut the mustard,
Right, or have them walk away going, this is not what I thought it would be.
And it's happening across
I
the
know,
state.
I've heard about it on
We had,
when we had Chief Petoniak in here.
yeah, we had people bail on us.
That's what I'm
Said,
saying. We
"I'm
had
done."
Chief Petoniak who said that, is it because we don't have that kind of test drive system anymore, that we put people through the academy and they've walked away. Either they've come in, they've gone through the academy, we paid for it, they come for a year and go, this isn't what I wanted,
No.
and
no.
walk. And he's like, that's just, unfortunately, that's a casualty of the law that they thought was doing so much good.
Don't get me going on that.
I agree with you. You're preaching to the choir.
It's the police reform. All it did was it was a feel good thing for the big politicians out in Boston.
Correct.
So they could say, look what we did, and nothing at the MPTC level
And also, you know what? Also, what that
nothing's
did,
changed.
that decimated the college police ranks
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because anybody that was special state police
if you didn't have
now
enough
became
hours.
municipal equivalent. Well, they became municipal equivalent if they went through a bridge academy.
Yep.
And now all those guys left to go to municipals because it was a lot harder to go into municipal because when you went to municipals before, you had to go through the municipal academy again.
Yep.
After SS special state police officer, you had to go through a municipal academy. So most people were like, "Nah, I'm not going to do that again," and they would stay in the college ranks.
Yeah.
Then now, all these guys are getting the municipal equivalent, and they're hitting the eject button after like a year or two.
I mean, if you're not civil service, you can go to non-civil service departments
Yeah.
any day of the week. And if you're civil service, you can ask for a lateral transfer. Excuse me.
And most people don't understand the logistics of that in the police department. Plus, because of all the negative publicity, if you will,
People, don't want the
people
job.
are just getting out. Like we were talking about that with healthcare too. People are getting out of healthcare. They don't want to deal with it.
Well, one of the examples I give when we were talking about different things is primarily during the labor discussions that we all had. Is I said, you got to look at the situation now. There was an article in the paper a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, that said, let's look at the amount of people that took the state police exam, and I think it was 2010 or 2012. It was 40,000.
Yep.
You want to know how many took it in 2022?
5.
4.
4,000.
It's like between 4 and 4,500.
Well, because it's been stigmatized.
Oh yeah, I mean, you remember when I got on, you had to fight. You had to
Yeah.
fight tooth and nail and be willing to sit on a reserve list like I did. Sometimes 2, 3, 4 years
Multiple reserve lists some people were on.
to get that full-time position. Now we're actually, I'm sure, I don't know if Chief Petoniak mentioned it to you, we're actually reaching outside town, and we're still not getting. We're getting 16, 17, 18 applicants for 1 or 2 positions. By the time we're done, we've got 3 that are qualified, and the last time I knew of, we had 3 that were qualified and 2 bailed out.
Yeah.
It's not as the amount of liability they've stuck on our heads.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's horrible. That guy in the Cape, it got killed because the gentleman threw the rock at the suspect threw the rock at his head. And that guy was it was that 1 second of delay going, he's got a rock. Is that really, should I do this?
Sure, yeah.
And yes, as you and I both know, anything used the right way can be turned into a deadly weapon.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that officer lost his life. And I truly, honestly believe that part of this abuse that we're taking from the political world, we're being used as patsies.
Yep.
For people to move on up their
All right, before I get your blood boiling anymore,
that's all right.
what's coming up I know you guys have been through, we've heard from Joe, we've heard from Doug about the budget season. What are your priorities for the budget season?
Well, it's been interesting. As you know, I know you've talked to Joe.
Because Joe has found his niche in finance. He really has.
We'll see. Next year's coming. We'll
I know,
see.
but he's found his niche.
He is very, very, very
I think
good.
he likes it there. I think for him, he's found that balance. Like we talk about the balance, right?
I'd love to not be in a battle with Joe again. And I don't consider it a personal battle. I want people, I've said that when I ran. I have nothing against anybody. This
Right.
isn't a personal thing for me.
But like I said, I think he's found his niche in finance, plus with all the stuff he's doing with the Civic Association. Plus, he runs a business.
Oh, I get it.
So I think he's found the balance that he thought he had before, but now has, and he's like,
Well, we'll see. And I've told people if we run against each other next year, I'm going to run to win, and I'm sure Joe is going to run to win. And whoever wins, great. That's what the town wants.
Mm-hmm.
So, the one thing I said to people, I go, is if I don't win, I get a little bit more of my personal time back. But,
well, that's what I think. That's part of it.
So
yeah.
Because, like I said, people, myself included, you see the meetings and you're like, oh, this isn't going to be that bad.
I did warn you.
You did.
That first interview we had, that nice chat we had when you were running, I warned you because I've seen it. So I've been on the outskirts of it, and where I can see what's going on and go, okay. Mm-hmm. Was that something? I mean, I've served on a board and commission in Westfield. until until the dispatch became regionalized.
Yep.
Whatever, and for selectmen, can't, or for city council, I really can't because of the position that I sit in.
Yeah. Well, and you also have to weigh your personal. And if my kids were still younger, there's no way. Just
Right.
no way.
Yeah.
Because you give up a lot of time. I lose a lot of time with my wife and me working. Like when we did our budget, our first budget reconciliation meeting, was it 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
We walked out of there at 10 something. I went home, grabbed my stuff, and had to go to work.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes it's hard to find that balance.
Yep.
But I think I'm doing all right. I haven't heard too many complaints. Joe has given me a couple compliments here and there, which I appreciate that more. He may not, or people may not think that, but that means a lot to me. I think him and I kind of differed on my selection on the chief. I understand that. But again, anybody that wants to know why can talk to me. This is the one time, like Diane and Doug said, going back to that, I relied on my expertise, as you said, that I have. And
well, you've been so in the department that is called police, within a municipal department setup. Police and fire are different animals in every other department.
True, very true.
They run differently. Their organizational structure is different, and unless you're part of that organizational structure or you've been part of that organizational structure, you really don't know.
No, you
Looking
don't.
from the outside, you
And
don't
that
really
was one
know.
of the other things that a lot of people, I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the public in general, but one of the most important things for me, coming from being a police officer, is that guy that's going to be running the department, is that going to be good for those guys? Because I've worked under.
You have to look at it with two hats.
Yeah.
Is it good for the general population? Many hats. Is it good for town government? Mm-hmm. And is it good for the guys under the person's command?
Yep. I'm going to be the first guy to tell you that if something were to come up and it warrants removal or disciplinary action or some sort of action, I'm going to be the first one to go say, we got to deal with this. But I'm, like I said.
I mean, you got to give the guy a little bit of time to establish how he's going to do things, and the guys also have to.
Well, I researched that. I went out to some of the guys, and what I heard from most of the guys was that either one of them would be a great choice, but
well, that's good to know.
They're happy. From what I understand, everybody I've talked to is content. There's no real inner complaints. There might be. I was told even some of from a couple other officers that even the guys that may not have their personalities may not mesh the best with the chief, they're not disappointed. They're not upset. If some of them are, by all means, tell me. I'm not going to violate anybody's confidence. So
yeah.
But so that's where that is. As far as the budget, Joe asked for level funded.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense with the current economic climate.
Diane, God bless her, she went through every single line item.
Well, but that's her ilk though, because she was.
That's her
business
Joe,
accounting.
Exactly. Yep.
So she has that expertise.
Yes, exactly. So I went over everything, and if to me it's level funded, and like we went over this with Joe and Diane when
And
we
rest
had
of
our
finance.
Yep, when we were dealing with, and like I said, our reconciliation, our last one is tomorrow. So I'm pretty much content with the budget the way it is. I wish we had more money for some things, specifically like the roads and infrastructure.
There's not the way the state funding set up for that is, it's never going to be enough.
No,
and especially with the way the cost has skyrocketed.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. As far as the school budget, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna wait until they're done. Personally, I think I'm just going to leave my personal opinion out of it.
Okay, that's
so
fair. No, that's absolutely fair.
I think
because
personally,
it's an up or down proposition for you guys, just like
and that's
it is everywhere else.
People are like, well, this, that, and this. I said, you got to understand. Technically,
go to the school committee.
They're a different governmental entity.
Right.
I don't have.
If you want a line item, if you have a line item problem with the school department, you need to go to a school committee meeting.
Correct.
That goes for any municipal organization. The school department, although it's part of the town budget, is not part of the town budget because it's a line item, single line item. Their entire budget is a single line item on the town or city budget, and that's what people don't understand. I think in Westfield, they go to the city council to complain about the school department budget. And the city council goes, not our problem.
Well, when Westfield's a little bit better positioned to actually, at a town level, Westfield does have the ability to say things because it's actually it's the city of Westfield's public schools.
Right.
Whereas
you guys are part
regional,
of a region.
So we don't, because it's a region, we don't have that governance over them at all. I mean, we have no say over the superintendent. We have some involvement if somebody steps down from the school committee, and stuff like that. But otherwise, we can say our piece, but that's pretty much, we're kind of speaking from the same point of view as far as the school committee is looking at it as any other public citizen.
Yep.
They're going to say, we're going to ask them if we need to cut it. I guess Joe said, hopefully, it sounds like from what we originally heard, they might have been able to find, 300 something plus worth of savings. We'll see. A lot of that hopefully will get hashed out tomorrow. But there's a few things in their budget that, like the athletic fields have sucked since I went to school there, and I don't think.
That's a common problem.
Yeah, I don't think well, I hear that, we don't have the G&E to give us 1.1 million every year.
I don't understand why that's controversial, but it is.
I don't
get it, but that's another day. Another time.
Are there a few things that Southwick needs for the sporting, the athletic portion of it? Yeah, I think there's a few things that could be fixed, but I don't think we need to go out and get turf fields and everything like that. It's unless you do get artificial turf and stuff like that, to maintain those fields at the level that people would want them at, you're going to have to put in irrigation. And then there's more money for the water, like we're finding out with the spray park that everybody's all up in arms about, and stuff like that. So, but the budget, Joe and Diane are the experts on that. Doug and I Doug's probably a little more deep into it, and I will admit I don't dig as deep as the other two into it.
Yep.
If you can show me that this is your budget and this is why you need it, and the finance committee says, to me they're okay with it, I don't have a problem with that. That's their
task.
Exactly. That is what they're there to do.
That's their job.
But I will admit, Diane did point out a few spots that were areas that it's like, okay, I see. They traditionally ask for this. They haven't spent that much. Okay, I agreed with her in a couple spots to cut a little bit here and there. But for the most part, I tried to leave things as is because, the prices and costs of things, especially at like an infrastructure DPW level, and even the police level,
You'd expect your
time, it
department
varies.
heads to do their due diligence.
They're the managers, we're the governors. So, so we also picked a new CAO, Miss Nicole Parker. She's the current town manager of Hardwick. I know there might be some belly aching there as well, because it was her or our current DPW director, Randy Brown. Again, this was not a personal thing to me. And I'm going to be honest, I even admitted this to Randy before I knew he was a candidate. I wanted somebody from outside of town. I think Carl, prime example is Carl Steinhardt 34 years ago was not from Southwick. I think a fresh, like Diane and I both said, a fresh set of eyes that hasn't been involved, that really, I don't know how I want to put this, that really, in some ways, having your heart in the town is great. In other ways, sometimes the
with Carl, that came with time.
Yeah, with the familiarity, the decision was very hard for me because in my heart, I wanted to pick Randy because he's a great guy, and he knows the town, and I know how dedicated he is to the town. But my brain and my select board mind was saying, I need to make the decision right now, anyways, that I think is the best for the town of Southwick. And that's what I did there. It was, I have no ulterior motives, contrary to what some people say. Not too many, but I didn't go into this. I didn't become a selectman for me. It's about what's best for the town of Southwick, and that's part of why, like I said, if next year Joe runs or somebody runs against me and they beat me, that's what the town wants, and I'll shake that person's hand and say good luck. And it's regardless of what happens, this has been extremely rewarding for me. It's also opened my eyes to a whole new different world, and whether I decide to come back, because I still haven't made that decision either.
Right.
Based on where my life is as far as retirement and getting close to that as well, and where I want to go and what I want to do eventually. But right now I'm leaning towards yes. But the town will decide that next year. But this year it's it's Doug's turn. We've only got 2 contested races, one of which is for the school committee, and that was in the news as well as far as different things. There's been some controversy at the schools with all the unfortunately the racial incidents and the DEI stuff, and I do want to say I probably worded it incorrectly when I came out and said that the school has stuck their head in the sand. What I should have said is that as from the town side, we're not going to stand by and wait until something happens. That's really what I should have said. There was no personal, even though they came back at me, there was no personal attack intended on that. I just didn't agree with the way that the school has handled this whole situation. But difference of opinion.
Yeah, there was also some instigators involved in that too.
There's still
that I've been dealing with since my days at Channel 40.
Yeah, there's I'm not going to say
right. No, that's fine. That's all. I'm going to leave it right there.
Exactly. I think you and I might have had a discussion about that, Carl's thing. But unfortunately it's a situation, and it's something that needs to be dealt with. I'm not a big woke person. I'm not a big, but I believe really, I think it's about everybody being treated equally. And as I said, a lot of people, even when I really started researching it a couple years ago, it was my wife that really opened me up to the fact that equality and equity are not, people
correct. They're not
them.
the same term.
Yeah, exactly. They're not the same.
And here's the thing. I went through high school. I took a lot of crap. But
me too.
I came out at the other end a little bit tougher, and people that needed to take their lumps. I only got in one fight in school, my entire career.
Me in high school, and
I took grief for a better part of a school year before I finally said, "Take off your glasses. I'm going to punch you now." I really said that, and the nuns were laughing about that after they pulled me off.
Good for you.
But yeah. So, but kids are unless they're taught otherwise. Kids are cruel.
It starts at home.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Kids can be cruel.
Well, it's even worse now because you and I, at least when we went home, we got away from it.
That's true.
We didn't go on and see everybody talking.
That's why I also don't sit on this thing all day with this.
Yeah. No, I
know some people that do it. I'm like, why?
Yeah. I get
you have much better things to do with your life.
My ex-wife, my current wife. Well, you didn't. It's like I do not live for that stupid thing. It's like, look, if I don't know the number, I ain't answering it. You can leave a voicemail, or you can text me. The easiest way to get an answer from me is right away is text me and let me know who you are and this is what you're calling. Can you text me back? I think that's probably, as much as I said I was never going to be a texter. That's probably one of the things I got into there. That
conversation starter.
Yes, exactly. It makes it and it makes it a little bit easier to control it. Obviously, you don't get the voice inflection, and sometimes there's some confusion there. But
that's why you have the follow up conversation. Yeah, it's like, hey, are you? I got a text while we were on the air. Hey, are you available to talk? No, but I will be after 9:00. Okay.
Yeah. So, And it amazingly, we've almost burned through my hour like that again.
So I got a question for you. When is town meeting this year?
Town meeting is, you had to ask me that. Town meeting, the elections are the 14th, and it's the following Tuesday. I didn't leave, I left my phone sitting out there, so.
Because I know Doug said he wasn't going to be here for this
Doug
year's
will
town meeting
not
because
be
he has
there.
a business trip.
Yep, he will be in, it's the first time I guess it's ever conflicted.
Correct.
Even though it pretty much falls on the same time frame. I guess a lot of it had to do with leap year, he said, so.
Right.
So it's going to be me and Diane up there, and Bobby. I don't know if our new CAO will be in place or not, but the whole intent was to have, for a reason to have Bobby as acting CAO,
Somebody for town meeting.
was for somebody town meeting who's got some familiarity and some
to get you through the town meeting.
some
Yeah.
chief administrator skills.
Yep.
So that's where we are. So whatever the Tuesday is after that, I think.
And the agenda's still being set for that, right?
I think it's
So that'll be
yes. All the
that'll be a
warrant
Doug.
articles.
I think Doug's week next. Doug's right before town meeting.
Doug is right before town meeting, and prior to, he'll do like Russ and Joe and everybody else has done in the past. Whoever the chairman is will come on and
preview.
explain all the articles and whatnot. It's not as extensive as last year. There's a few zoning bylaws and stuff like that. There's no big, there's no cannabis. There's no aggregation. There's nothing really like that this year. I worked really hard to get that stuff done. So this year was trying to get that stuff done and through, and we're pretty much there. Next year, if there's a couple things that I'd like to look at, but we'll see.
Okay.
But that's kind of where we are. I'm glad I got an opportunity to come in. It's the first time I actually wish I had more time than the hour.
You can go a couple more minutes if you want to.
Oh, all right.
Got some flexibility.
All right, if you got some flexibility. So, and as far as the CAO, we got that there.
You guys got with a brand new, relatively pretty much brand new select board. You guys got settled with a lot.
Yeah, brand new sec board. We had those the interesting and not really controversial, but very.
I mean, look at it this way. During your tenure, you finished the process of separating the clerk treasurer office.
Well, it's not quite finished yet.
I know,
we're
but
there.
you got that process almost over the finish line.
Yep.
You had one of the longest serving or the longest serving town
Pretty
manager
close.
in the state history, pretty
Yep.
much. Decide I'm retiring.
Yep. And
And
Carl,
you had to
thank you
replace-
for everything.
I know Carl's such a humble guy.
Yes, and I owe him.
He
a
really
lot.
is a humble guy.
I said you had to leave before the end of my first term, didn't you?
And then you have had to replace the police chief.
Police chief, and now we got to do a new council on aging director.
Sure, that's still outstanding. Yeah.
And we've got like you said, when we completely separate it, we're going to be looking for a town clerk because Jess is going to be treasurer collector, and so we'll be looking for a town clerk there, and hopefully.
That's a lot of upheaval.
Hopefully that's it for the time being.
But again, that's a lot of upheaval.
Yeah,
during
it's
your first
a
term.
lot of change, and I'm still learning a lot and still got a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm there longer, then I'll be learning every day to the end.
Yep.
So that's pretty much where we are. I'm trying to think if there's anything really, really important.
Any message you want to get out before town meeting? What's the deadline for articles? Do we know?
I think it's
Probably shortly.
Yeah, it's shortly. Unfortunately, I'm going to be honest. I almost forgot I had this again today.
All right. If you had a deadline for articles, contact the town manager's office.
Yes. Please contact the town manager.
If there's something you want to get on there because that you have,
I
you
pretty
literally
much-
have the most democratic form of government
Yes, yeah.
out there.
We're pretty much at the point now where I think all our articles are pretty much done. I want to say everything, like I said, there's been so much going on.
Yep.
It's melded together. The dates that I knew specifically are not in my head right now. I can say
Yeah,
that.
I got you.
I think we're pretty much there because we've already had like our sample, our warrant articles have come for us to kind of review is what's going to be on there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not too much more to. I mean, I could go farther into some of the other stuff, but we're in a good spot. The one thing I want to see is, this hunting, trespassing, this land issue that came up.
Yep.
That we just had the public meeting last night. There was so much interaction and so many people came out and got involved. I really wish, we don't need that for every meeting, but I definitely would love to see more people show up, especially when there's controversial, because there was so much controversy and on some of these topics. And one of the things that was, there was no opportunity for public comment. BS, there was. You just didn't listen or you didn't pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening. I'm willing to hear any side of anybody's coin or opinion, or whatever side of the fence they're on, and to take that as input. But nobody really came out and had anything to say even after the fact that there was going to be a lot of people that wanted to come out and speak. And I tell you, after that chief selection that was somewhat controversial for some people, we were ready to get lambasted by some people, and not a peep.
Right.
So, but so that's pretty much it. I really hope. I'd like to see more people come out for town meeting. I know it's a foreign form of government for people who aren't familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, even myself, when I first moved to town, was not familiar with the type of town meeting setup and the time of the year. It's in Westfield. Everything's in November, as you and I know. It's based on that time frame. But so, and I see it looks like your next guest is coming in here. It looks like, I would guess.
That's one of the teachers rolling in.
All right.
I just had to let her know they got a new copier here, like a new document center, and the guy's finally putting the last two pieces of it. This thing is enormous. It's like 15 feet long.
Really?
And the guy's putting the last two pieces on it. They can do just about anything with this machine now, like softcover books and stuff.
Oh, so it can like print posters and.
Yeah, it's pretty coll.
That's
Pretty cool machine.
Yeah, we're getting a new one over at the PD. So,
before you leave, take a look at I'll show you
Yeah.
this thing. It's
I'll have to take a look.
monstrous.
So that's pretty much where we are, Pete. Like I said, this is the first time that I really, we've used our extra few minutes. I don't want to keep you. You got other people coming, but I really just I want to hear from people on anything.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna listen to what you have to say. We may not agree on it, and I'm gonna give you my point of view, and you can give me your point of view. But I'm here for the residents, not for myself. So come on out. Come see me. If you got questions, please. Because sometimes just airing your dirty laundry out on Facebook and the forums. Really, that's all you're doing.
It gets nothing accomplished.
It does, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why the couple of things that came up, I made this smart choice as I would make my one answer, and I said, this is the only time you're going to hear from me about this, and I locked down the comments because so here you can, if you want to start your own thread somewhere else and tear my rear end apart, go for it.
On that note,
Yes.
we shall be done. We'll see you in 2 months.
Yes, we'll have more to talk about. We'll have the elections, and we'll see where things go. And because like I said, there's only two contested and I know one of them is the school committee that is being run for, and I forget what the assessors board or.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the ballot, so.
Yeah. Shame on me for not knowing this right now, but
That's okay.
All
right, we out.
All right, Pete. Thank you.